here, and I'll pass it from there to Ann-Louise to start things off. So just hold on one moment. All right, good morning, everybody. Welcome to Concordia University's fourth space. Thanks for joining us for today's event. These are innovation challenges for winter 2026. Now, we'd like to begin by acknowledging that Concordia University is located on unceded Indigenous lands here in Tiohtià:ke, Montreal. And we respect the continued connections with the past, the present, and future, and our ongoing relationships with Indigenous and other peoples within the Montreal community. Here at Fourth Space, we work with our university community to help mobilize knowledge, co-creating daily activities that examine research questions and projects happening all across the university. Now, we're running today's event as a live stream, both to YouTube and via Zoom. So if we have some time for some questions at some point, just add those into the chat and we'll do our best to read those out. But also just, if you want to use the reactions button, that we can see that here on our big screen as well. Those of you here in the space, same thing. If we have some time for some questions, let's raise your hand. We'll run a microphone around so that everyone can see. Okay, it's very much my pleasure now to hand the microphone over to the director of the Innovation Lab, as well as strategic advisor for innovation in the Faculty of Arts and Science, Dr. Ann-Louise Davidson. Always wonderful to have you.
Thank you, Doug. Hello, everybody. Welcome and thank you for attending the Winter 2026 Innovation Lab final presentations. This is the culmination of months of exploration, experimentation, and collaboration. And I want you to know something. You all know as students, but for the audience, innovation cannot be done alone. I wouldn't be able to do this without you. What you're doing is beyond my expertise. All I'm doing is I'm facilitating the process, I'm building the partnerships, I'm dealing with amazing mentors that have way more knowledge than I have to accompany you through this process. So I certainly wouldn't be able to do it without everybody. Behind this cohort, there's a whole ecosystem of people. So what you'll hear today is student solutions to real challenges, real world challenges coming from the industry, the startup ecosystem, community partners. You'll hear about their pivots, their uncertainties, moments outside comfort zones. And you'll also hear in one of the roundtables current and past mentors sharing the experience of mentoring students through the innovation process. So the Innovation Lab at a glance, I always like to say, it's more than a program, it's a hands-on collaboration space. Since 2020, it was nearly $1 million in funding given directly to students, directly in the students' pockets. Over 50 challenges tackled, 39 partnerships signed. The first time I built a partnership, I was scared, and now it's just become a way of living. 70+ innovation mentors guiding the way, 80+ programs represented across the 4 faculties, 272 students supported, 28,000 student hours invested towards the effort of solving authentic real-world problems through the innovation process. So I also want to tell you that there is new opportunity for innovation. The Faculty of Arts and Science is now offering a 9-credit microprogram. It's well underway. We have a beautiful cohort working. 400 is being offered this summer with 7 innovators that will help co-design the process for other students with me. There's also a complementary elective group for Concordia students, and Enough 200 will be offered in the winter 2027, and there are still spaces available. It will be taught by my colleague Julien as I leave on sabbatical on July 1st. So this semester's work presents 5 distinct challenges: 3D ultrasound imaging, linguistic sovereignty, regenerative agriculture, cyber violence, immersive reading in virtual environments. The partners are Kirkview Farms, Stop Cyber Violence, Redality, Sonaro, and Heritage Labs. Mentors, they are really the heartbeat of this experience. We have Mike McGilvery, Cora McGilvery, Emmanuel Lomonaco, Daniel Jasmin, Arthur Lubares, Tariq Boukalfi, Karina Gasparino, Etienne Lescarbot, Yor Sanko, and Ali Mehdi. Behind the scenes, there's so much that happens. One of the most major pivot that happens behind the scenes is after we do all this work, I invite Johanne Pelletier, who is the Director of Strategic Communication, Director of please, public engagement. I'm sorry, One thing I don't get wrong is that she's an award-winning storyteller, and she helped shape the student presentation. So maybe I'll call Johanne over to talk a little bit about what is in pitching before we hear the 5 different pitches.
Good morning, everyone. Remember to breathe. Yes? Everyone is breathing? Good, good. I'm Johanne Pelletier. I work in communications, and a lot of my work is also around how to talk to general publics, a range of publics, as you know, about the complexity of the work they do. I wanted to share this. There's a study out of UC Irvine that looked at our attention spans, a longitudinal study. 20 years, a researcher looking at how long we can pay attention to one thing, the thing that we hear aloud. In 2004, it was 2.5 minutes. It's now, not surprisingly, 40 seconds. It's all the more reason we need to learn how to condense the vast spinach of detail that is in our work to something that the public can grasp, hold, and engage on. And that is the magic of pitching. So today, for our audience, our student teams have been challenged to do what I call the opposite of what academic researchers teach us to do. And that is to take the immensity of detail and make it into something simpler, never dumbing it down, just hoping that it'll travel a whole lot further. That is the magic of pitching, and it is not only for entrepreneurship, it absolutely belongs in the academy, and it is a form of storytelling. And so, our first team, we're going to hear from 5 extraordinary, talented teams who worked really, really hard on these pitches in a very specific kind of format. And once again, I'm going to invite all of our colleagues, please breathe. It's the beginning of your public speaking journey. You're going to be speaking a whole lot in your lives. So what a better place to start than here at Fourth Space at Concordia. Our first team, mental health in digital childhood.
Thank you, Johanne. I'm Julien. We're with Mental Health and Digital Childhood, so with Stop Cyber Violence. We're going to be talking about Monster Mood and Monster Messenger, which are 2 products of Stop Cyber Violence. In Canada, suicide is one of the highest cause of death for children. Every year, more and more children suffer from mental health issues. That's where Monster Mood and Monster Messenger come in. Monster Mood is a physical board game designed to help preschool and elementary school aged children recognize and communicate their emotions, while also helping them build confidence, seeking support from trusted adults. Our goal is to make this tool available to everyone by offering it free of charge. To date, over 500 schools, community centers, and families are waiting to receive their copy. For production to be viable, we need to print 1,000 copies, minimizing our costs. We'll come back to you with our ask at the end of the pitch.
Thank you, Julien. But helping children express themselves is only half the task here, because many adults don't know how to respond to their children correctly. So that's where our application, Monster Messenger, comes into play. It's a 24/7 AI-powered tool developed with child psychiatrists and experts to support parents and caregivers. It helps them understand what a child may be feeling, respond with the right words, and guide conversations in a safe, non-judgmental manner. We've worked to strengthen the platform behind the scenes, adding multiple layers of security to ensure that these conversations always remain private, confidential, and accessible in a safe digital environment. We leverage AI enhanced with strong ethical guidelines to ensure that the advice provided is safe, responsible, and truly supportive for children. We're also expanding our AI integration with social media to detect early signs of distress, such as cyberbullying.
Our goal is to bring conversation from the child's bedroom to the family dining table, transforming the fear of not being understood into opportunities for connection. This is not just about technology, but about building trust so that every child feels safe to open up and every caregiver feels equipped to respond. Today, we are seeking funding and committed partners to scale both of these solutions. More specifically, we need $20,000 to print the boards and $10,000 in community engagement for the app. Because sometimes the right words at the right time can change or even save a life. And it all starts with a conversation. Thank you.
So we'll hand it over to Medium is a Message, Indigenous Language Preservation as Process, not Product.
Thank you. My name's Alex. I'm representing Heritage Lab today, and unfortunately my two teammates couldn't make it today, so it's going to be just me talking to you. The Government of Canada conducted a systematic literature review on Indigenous language revitalization projects, and out of more than 4,000 articles that they've reviewed, only 50 of them focus on Indigenous communities' own solutions to learning their own languages in any way, shape, or form. So what's to make of that? It shows how easily language revitalization can be flattened to a generalized concept to be studied or an end to be reached rather than an ongoing process that connects us. Typical language learning experiences engage users to think about what content is there for me to learn from versus what is the content I'm learning bringing me closer to. This is especially true for many of the existing resources for Inuktitut, an Inuit language spoken in Nunavik, Quebec, which our project focuses on. Together with Heritage Lab, we are approaching the problem of creating an immersive learning experience as a question of process, not product, especially in times where key Indigenous language learning assets and stories are being scraped, flattened, or fed into AI-generated content made to sell learning back to people. There are existing learning materials. There are dedicated community members who speak Inuktitut, and there are people who want to speak it, whether as a second language or as a lost first language. The interest and commitment are real, so the goal is to connect what's already there to people. With the help of community members, we investigated the context in which the language is spoken the most. We used this to see how Heritage Lab's current and future tools can be used as a pathway into what motivates people to share and learn in the first place. From there, the project opens out to communities, calling for samples of local histories, ambient recordings of spaces, and styles of local artists. Today, so much of language learning happens online. That means that what we choose to share, document, and build together shapes the record that future learners will inherit from us. Heritage Lab is one way that this is being handled with care. A living archive built from sounds, stories, and designs which reflect not only how language sounds, but how it feels. We invite you to take part in this process. Please scan the QR code at any time to explore Heritage Lab's platform, connect with ongoing Inuktitut language projects, and see how your engagement can help shape the shared spaces where language continues to grow. Thank you.
Okay, so thank you, Alex. Just as a note, I see Vaishnavi on screen. So she was working in a team. She's currently in India because of a family emergency. But hello, Vaishnavi. There was also Anne-Marie. I don't know if she's together. Is she with us today, Natalie? No? Okay.
Yeah, she is with us today.
She is? Okay, perfect. So Anne-Marie was also
online.
part of the team. Okay, so the next team is AgriPulse, who is going to talk to us about Moo Tech. And I find that incredibly exciting.
Regenerative agriculture is about feeding the soil. This often means a high volume of labor and at times low tech. But regenerative farmers are not averse to tech. We at AgriPulse have developed a family of solutions to help regenerative farmers better manage their livestock. We'd like to thank Mike and Cora at Kirkview Farms, as well as Ann-Louise Davidson for mentoring us throughout this challenge. Over the last few months, we've developed a long-range water level sensor, a livestock data management system, and a new website to share innovations. Our long-range water level sensor monitors livestock basins and sends updates remotely. This is especially useful when herds are grazing far from any Wi-Fi infrastructure. By reducing the need for constant checking, the sensor saves time and helps farmers ensure that their animals have continuous access to water.
But gathering data is only one part of the challenge. Information needs to be gathered in a clear and concise way. FarmOS, a farm management platform, allows sensor data and farm records to be brought together into one centralized system. This helps farmers move away from scattered notes, memory-based tracking, and disconnected tools. AgriPulse builds on top of that to offer open source accessible systems that work in sync with the realities of regenerative farming. Since open source was a core concept of our software's development, right now, anybody can join and contribute to the code base to help farmers ensure their animals are well cared for. To share our innovations, we developed a website to help farmers build their own tools. We invite you to take a look at our website and to share it as a resource to your local farmer, garden, or agriculturist. We are actively looking to connect with more farmers to test our device in as many places and situations as possible. Thank you.
All right, so I will invite Redality to come and present.
Hi, I'm Dorsa, and this is Cash, and we're part of Redality. Digital reading works really well for text, but when it comes to comics, graphic novels, and manga, the experience is different. These stories are visual, and the readers don't want to just read textbooks, they want to step inside the stories. And now with technology evolving, and especially with VR, we have the opportunity to transform readers' experience into something way more immersive. So what is our solution? Redality. Redality is a platform designed specifically for comic readers. It allows users to read their favorite comics inside a fully immersive 3D environment. With a MetaQuest headset, readers can simply launch the app, choose their comic book, and place themselves inside a world inspired by the story. So they experience the narrative around them as they're reading the book. But that's not all.
Modality isn't just designed for the readers, it's also built for publishers. With Modality, publishers can bring their work onto the platform and present it in a completely new and immersive way. This creates opportunities to reach wider audiences and share stories through environments and experiences that just weren't possible before. So Modality is more than just a platform for distributing content. We see it as a new form of storytelling, one that blends the reading the environments, and the interactions into a new experience. So far, we've made strong progress in developing the application and refining the user experience, but we're very excited about what comes next. So looking ahead to 2026, we're very excited to launch our beta version. And we're also working on exciting new features such as shared multi-reader spaces, live events, and fully customizable environments. So if you're interested in trying Redality or staying updated on our progress, we would be very glad to hear from you. And you can also visit our website for more information. That's our QR code. And we want to thank our amazing team, as well as our founder and CEO, Arthur. A great deal of hard work has gone into this project. And finally, we truly appreciate your time and attention today. Thank you.
All right, and last but not least, we have a presentation on smarter views from simple scans. This is the first health-related challenge in the lab, so come on over.
Hi, today we are going to tell you a story how the smarter views from simple scan can save millions of lives by transforming the scanning technology for disease diagnosis. I believe all of us heard about a stroke, which is a silent killer. 1 out of 4 persons suffer from the stroke, which causes 6.5 million deaths each year around the globe. So the plaque on the carotid arteries we have here is considered as the main reason of the stroke. So early detection of the plaque over here on the carotid arteries is very necessary. The 2D ultrasound is the primary and widespread method for this diagnosis. However, doctors and clinicians use it on a daily basis by knowing its limitations. First of all, it doesn't provide a clear view of the organs, so the early sign of the disease remain invisible. At the same time, is highly operator dependent and time consuming. To tackle these issues, 3D ultrasound comes in place, but it comes at a cost. It's highly expensive in terms of hardware. It needs advanced and sophisticated setup, and it is also requires highly trained operators. As a result, the 3D ultrasound is locked behind the doors of elite hospitals, while it is not accessible to millions of people, especially in the rural and underserved regions. So we are Team Sonero, working for the solution that can be used by everyone and everywhere. That means democracy for the ultrasound.
At Sonero, we asked one question: what if smarter views did not require smarter machines, but just smarter software? We built an AI-powered platform that takes the 2D ultrasound images and the videos clinicians already capturing and reconstructs the clinically meaningful 3D organ views in under 60 seconds. No new prop, no new hardware, no additional training. Our platform gives clinicians improved 3D visualization of organ structures, real-time quantitative measurement, and early detection of the disease states, like a carotid artery plaque, before they become life-threatening. We plug into existing clinical workflow. The clinician doesn't change what they do, they just see far more. And here's why this matters right now. Almost every clinic in the world already have the 2D ultrasound machine. Sonero doesn't ask hospitals to buy a new machine. We unlock the diagnostic power already sitting in their machines and bring it to the rural clinics, underserved communities, anywhere ultrasound exists. Early detection saves lives, lower cost, and opens the doors to more effective treatment. We are democratizing the ultrasound one scan at a time. Smarter views, simple scans, that's Sonero.
Thank you, everyone. I'm wondering, are there any questions about any of the innovations, any of the projects before we move to the roundtables.
If anybody online has any questions, you could either just raise your virtual hand, you could turn on your camera and ask, or you could type it into the chat, we could read it out. And those of you here, if you have any questions, I'll run a mic over to you. Anyone?
So as we wait for the first question, I'm just going to mention that Arthur, who's the founder of Reality, is here with some headsets. A couple of people brought their headsets today too, and Amber the maker is now in Reality to be tested and read. So thank you, Arthur. No questions? No questions about the process? No questions about each other? Wow. So we provided all the answers in 180 seconds each. Okay, so let's discuss the nitty-gritty details around this. So I'll invite the first round of discussion. We're going to talk about defining the problem space with Naailah and Marie, who's online, Amir, Sunicha, Saidul, and Danielle. So I'm just going to mention that we have a very interesting audience online. There's 18 people. Don't hesitate to interact with us. We're honored to have you with us, and we're always willing to hear from you. So somebody's asking for the URLs for the different projects. We'll provide that shortly. All right. So you're ready. Perfect. The first thing that I want to talk about is when we talk about a problem space, right? For innovation, we have to have a problem space. Like the first distinction about innovation is different than invention. You can go in your basement and invent something for two people, or even for yourself, and never speak to any users. And you can, brand something, patent it, and so on and so forth. With innovation, you have to start exploring the problem space. Like, what's the real issue that you want to solve, and for who? So the first thing is how do you tell the difference between a symptom and the actual problem? Can you share an example that you initially focused on the symptom rather than the problem? And maybe we can go online with Anne-Marie to get started.
I will answer for Anne-Marie.
You are answering for Anne-Marie? Okay, perfect. Go for it.
Okay. Did you hear me? Okay. For me, I think the symptom is like the problem that we noticed. It's like the visible pain point at the tip of the iceberg model where we know what's happening, but we don't know why it happened and what causing it. And the real problem is below the surface. It's like the gap in the system that makes all those symptoms keep happening again. And what my approach is to detect the real problem is keep asking why for that situation, to understand, okay, what the missing gap and what is the root cause of it. So let me walk you through my project AgriPulse. We work with the farmer in Ontario, and we develop IoT water level sensor to help them detect water level in the basin remotely. So the earlier pain point that we found is that farmer has to drive 20 to 30 minutes on site to detect the water level. And most of the time, all those basin is empty, and nobody noticed that. And those animals have been without water. So the pain point, the natural fix for this, it should be like, okay, just go for that, check it several times. But after we keep asking why, then we realize that the real problem is the farmer, there is a blind spot that they don't know how they're gonna detect water remotely on the real time. They don't have like the monitor system to detect those water. So what my key takeaway is that when you found some of the problem, just asking why, asking more why. The last why would be the one that you're gonna find the real problem, because of like the system perspective start from root cause, and if you don't understand the root cause of it, so you're gonna end up treating symptom instead of system.
Right, keep on putting Band-Aids on top of the wound when the problem comes from under the skin. Yeah, we get it. Anybody else wants to give another example? Amir?
Yeah, sure. So we're working on the Readality project, which is about reading books. And one of the users' feedbacks was that right now we don't have any save system. So the users wouldn't be able to know what page they were on. If they left on page 50, for example, they wouldn't know what page they were on the next time that they came on the app. This was the symptom of us not having a save system. So we could either do a surface fix and just fix this issue, or go back in the codes and find the actual problem deeper in the codes and the system and try to develop a new system that fixes the problem from deep within, so we don't see any symptoms further on into the project.
Yeah, I imagine that must be a real problem when every time you go back into the environment, you have to reset everything, then find your page. It's a demotivator. So good for you for picking that up. So when you're looking for the problem space and you keep on asking the whys, what's your most reliable source of information? Is it the stakeholder interviews? Is it the data that you pick up from your project? Is it the direct observation, or is it something else?
Hello. Well, I'll speak for my experience. I work with Amir on Reality as a developer. So in my experience, I mean, like in our project, like in any other project, we have a different set of stakeholders. And in my experience, the best solution for a problem will come from different sources depending on the nature of the problem. So, for example, if the problem is has more to do with user experience, you probably want to go to the end user to ask for feedback. Or if the problem is more technical, you probably want to talk to the developers. Or, in our case, eventually we have investors. If the problem is more about more financial, you probably want to talk to them. So to give you a more concise answer, I guess the best source or the most reliable source for a solution to a problem will probably depend on the nature of that problem.
So you're opening a can of worms in a certain way. So when stakeholders disagree or when team members disagree on the nature of the problem, like what's the real problem or what's the root cause of the problem, how do you navigate that? Like how does that disagreement inform your next steps or your final problem statement?
I don't see whenever stakeholders make a disagreement is a problem, because I feel it's an opportunity to look at the problem from different perspective. Because, for example, one of the stakeholders maybe focus on the user perspective, another one is from technical, another one is like for infrastructure and so on. So I believe it's a good opportunity to find out the real problem. So when it happens, what I try to do, I try to separate the symptoms and try to look at the common problem that we're talking about. So and then try to find out the problem really, and it really helps me to find the real problem. If I elaborate a little bit more, then I would say whenever we have such kind of issues there, it helps me to write down the problem statement, because again, I can look at the problem from different perspectives. So it really helps me to write down the problems clearly.
Does anybody want to build up on that? Do you see disagreements as opportunities or problems? That's a really interesting perspective. Usually when there's a disagreement, we want to give someone the reason to be right rather than another, but to be able to gauge and to use that as feedback is quite a skill as an innovator. We rarely talk about that. You want to go, Amir?
Yeah, just to add, we also got to look out for similar patterns in what stakeholders think might be the problem. So if several stakeholders think a certain issue or they have similar concerns, that is more likely to be the problem, and we should put more attention into that certain issue.
Okay, so to get a little bit more concrete, maybe Naailah, I can give you an opportunity to speak about what happens when you define a problem too broadly, too narrowly. How do you find the right scope? How do you scope this?
So I think we need to find kind of a balance between too broad and too narrow, because if a problem is too broad, then the solution would be too vague. And if it's too narrow, then the solution might be insignificant. More specifically, if we define a problem that's too broad, then maybe we don't have a clear target audience, and also we are not able to pinpoint the actual problem, and then we cannot derive the correct metrics to decide whether the solution that we came up with is a success or not. Also, it might lead to ambiguity among the team members, and each of us can go in different directions, and we might feel lost at the end of their sprint, for example. But at the same time, if the problem is too narrowly defined, then it might not be scalable, or we might miss the opportunity to get a better solution just because we did not allow ourselves, we did not give ourselves enough room to explore around a bit. And I guess the right strategy to define a problem statement would be to start broad, and as you go, then you narrow it down. And also, we need to find a solution which is actionable, and we have the right metrics to define whether it's a success or not, and it should be grounded into the real user needs. Because maybe for us it's a good solution, but the people who will be actually using the solution, maybe they want something else from it, and we need to really listen to the users.
Do you have an example of that? Or anybody around the table has an example? I need to the rescue.
I don't know if it's an example of that specific point, but I just wanted to point out. I'll bring it back to my situation again, in reality, and us as developers particularly. Something that I've encountered is that working on a project specifically, as programmers, we tend to spend our time looking into the fine detail of the fibers of what makes a project, and sometimes we tend to lose the wider picture of what's important, or we might miss other larger problems because we're looking so close into the project.
I mean, that's a really interesting example. One of the first aspects I teach you about systemic design is that you're looking at the forest or the tree or the forest, and you can't lose track of the fact that the tree exists in the forest and the forest is made of trees. So the more you zoom in, the more you're likely to forget the systemic issues, and the more you zoom out, the more you forget to look at the particularities between how the items inside the system are working, how the objects or how the agents or the processes are working inside a system. So that's systems thinking, obviously, but as soon as you work in a team, how do you move from very, very specific to very, very broad? Is there somebody at one point who says, blow the whistle, okay, now let's look at the broad picture. Oh, no, let's look at the fine details. How does it happen when you work inside a team?
I think that's why it's always important to have unbiased sources, opinions from unbiased sources, because they're always going to look at the wider picture first, and they're not going to be looking at the details, because it's like when you're looking at a painting, you first notice the composition, then you might go in closer to analyze the finer strokes.
Naailah wants to build up on that.
Maybe because most of us here are engineers maybe, or developers, sometimes we tend to go a bit too technical on the solution, and we kind of forget about the users. So maybe it's important to have an intermediary between the team of developers and the real users, so that they can like make the transition between the technicality and academia maybe to the people that maybe don't have a college degree, and maybe we are able to understand their daily problems more as well.
So it's a more social sciences problem. And that's the need for multidisciplinary teams. All your teams worked at the intersection of multiple disciplines. Saidul and Mohammed, you're from two different disciplines. That's kind of interesting to build up on this in terms of the two perspectives you brought in from engineering and health sciences.
Yeah, that's true. Like, I think it's very important to think in terms of gray, I feel it. Like, rather than think in terms of black or white. Why I just love to mention that because whenever I work there, I'm an expert, I'd say, in terms of technical things. Mahamoodally was mostly on like clinical studies. So I think it's a good opportunity that we got to share our knowledge to each other. At the same time, we had some negotiations, okay, how to reach to a common point. So it really gave a lesson for us that, okay, whenever we work from different discipline or from different setup, it really helped us to grow in this way. So I believe like it's really useful one.
All right. Maybe last question. You have limited time and resources. How do you decide which problem we're solving? What criteria matters most? And maybe you can hand over the microphone to Amir since he wants to answer this question.
Thank you. So, while trying to solve a problem with limited resources and time, I think we got to take a look into is which problem gives us the most value. And we can find that by trying to think which problems are most important or frustrating to the users. We could either do that by like beta tests, or we could just get user feedback to realize which problems are most important to the users. And then we also got to take a look at how much effort, time, or just resources overall we need to solve these issues and problems. And when we combine these two, we could find the issues and problems that will give us the most value while taking the least amount of effort, and so we could focus on them. As an example, in our reading app that we're making, the onboarding experience, the tutorial is really important because that's the first thing that the user will see. And if the user doesn't know how to, for example, turn the page in VR or open the menu in VR, they might just not use the app. So that's really important and frustrating for users to deal with that. But as developers or as a team, it's one of the easier tasks to do to focus on the tutorial. So this would be one of the most prioritized tasks and problems that we could focus on.
All right. So I also wish that, for example, we could heat the streets of Montreal and never have to deal with ice. This is Rima's idea, Nadia. She told me, why is it that we're not heating the streets of Montreal? So I guess the question is, how much electricity would this take? How much resources would it take? And we have homelessness problems, we have public transportation problems, and so on and so forth. So we have to focus on what's really feasible, the resources we have, and prioritize on the needs of the many rather than the needs of those who slip and break a leg in the winter. So thank you for this first round table. Round of applause. All right. Thank you, folks. So I'm going to call in the second round table on from ideas to insights. So I'm going to call up Parsa, Alex, Tommy, Himanshu, Vaishnavi, who's online, Amna, and Cash. What time is it, Vaishnavi?
Right now it's around 9 o'clock, 8:45
p.m.
p.m.
Yeah, okay. So she's about to go to sleep. All right. So strategic brainstorming, prototyping, and usability testing are all part of the innovation process. I have a couple of questions to talk about prototyping. The first one is when we talk about minimal viable product or minimal viable even prototype, I would say, in a smaller version, how do you know if you're spending too much time on high fidelity at an early stage? Maybe we can start with Parsa and Tommy.
Yeah, I think we see that really clearly in our development of the long-range water level sensor that we've been working on for 2 semesters now. And what happened was that at the end of last semester, we had this prototype that used a bunch of 3D printing filament, and it was this huge thing that was sort of over-designed. And we took this to the farm, and within a matter of hours, it sort of fell apart, and it was just way too heavy and clumsy. And it's because we spent so much time focusing on it in the lab and within this contained environment. And so we didn't really know what it would be like to have it actually installed on the farm. And so this semester, we really focused on reducing the amount of 3D printing needed, the amount of filament, and also making sure that the form is really just the minimum of what's needed to hold that ultrasound sensor in place. And then also using resources that farmers typically already have, such as a clamp.
To bounce off of what Parsa just said, like early testing can prevent major pitfalls in the future. If you strive for perfection in the very first iteration of, before any users has gotten their hands on your product, usually one of 2 things are gonna happen. One, you're never gonna release the product because there's always gonna be one small bug to fix, one small feature that's missing. Or 2, when you release it after months or years, nobody's gonna want to use it because it doesn't fit with their workflow. It doesn't fit with the design that they imagined. So early testing is like a mandatory thing that everybody should do when developing a product.
I think I can add something to that for Redality specifically. Like, I think the minimal viable product for us would be a product where the publishers can upload their content, where the users can access the content through the headset, and they have access to libraries and payment systems. So that would be the minimum thing that we would need for Redality, because as Tommy said, like we can test and we can add features as much as we want, but you're gonna have to release the application at some point because users are waiting for it, and you also want to access more users because the more they use your application, the more you're going to get feedback, and you can improve on your design. So.
Yeah, and it's kind of interesting to look at how history informs this too, right? Like Microsoft did not pull out Microsoft Office Suite when it was perfect. They pulled it out when it was usable, and then they got the ticket system, they got the complaint system. They figured out how to recreate the hierarchy of tasks so that the menu is a little bit more user-friendly and the items are findable, and then they created the search tool and so on and so forth, which actually simplified a lot of things. People used to print out the shortcuts, and then when the search tool appeared, then it changed everything. But you don't pull out a product when it's completely ready. You pull it out when it's just usable and enough for users not to get too frustrated with. Yeah. Interesting. Can you walk us through how you engage users around an early prototype? Like, what's the biggest assumption you're trying to validate? How do you decide whether user feedback calls for a refining idea or pivoting altogether? And obviously, people can complain, but at one point, you can't fix everything, right? So maybe Amna, you want to talk about this?
I'm gonna speak more to like the first part of like how to get users engaged. So at Heritage Lab, like the entire premise of what we're doing is like trying to work alongside people as opposed to like pitch a final product to them. It's like, process, not product. So what I will say really helped us is that the people that we were working with really cared a lot. So when we first started it, it was we had like I would say it started more as like not even a Q&A, but like a pitch of sorts. But the community members we were speaking with were really passionate and they really cared a lot. And so over like the 2 or 3 hours, like the meeting kept going. And by the end of it, like they were proposing solutions and they were like giving us ideas and they all got really into it. So we were really lucky that way that we didn't have to like pull anything out of them. They were just really excited to be involved in it. So I would say like getting engagement would involve, I mean, making something that is important to the people that you're asking about, because you can't really force someone to care if they're not going to care. But yeah, I'll hand it off to Amna.
Yeah, exactly. Like I think I would like to add in this for our project itself, like for specifically the language which we don't speak and which we are working on, we don't really know what are their needs, and we really rely on user feedback, like how they will be treating this thing, how they will be looking towards this thing. So that was really great thing when we had feedback from the indigenous people who were teachers, also the sound recorders, with Ali, the team. So we got really good feedback from them, which helped us to make the product more better, the app or like the platform, everything to make it very much better.
Yeah, so I really agree because it's very important to engage the users at early stages of prototyping. It's very important to know more about their feedback, about their overall experience. So in our case, in our project, we like use the approach that depends on both collecting qualitative and quantitative data. So the quantitative data was to know more about users, key dimensions in readability related to comfort, easy of use, information retention, also overall experience, and the qualitative data to know more about what users suggest as like what features they want to improve or to fix, maybe to make their experience better. So both types of data are very important to have from users at early stages, and like this types of data also aids not only in validating the principal assumption of the principal assumption in our case, but also to find like the features that should be fixed, the fixation usability features. And here at this point, it helps a lot in distinguishing between the principal problems, the structural problems of the prototype, and the fixable features, usability features. And this leads to the decision related to refining the prototype or pivoting all together.
Yeah, online, Matthew Gardner talks about iterative design, and this is something that we hear all the time in innovation. You have to iterate. The test of reality as well, right? When a user gets the product in their hands, how do they react? And I guess at the farm, it's the test of the environment, right? The farmer does not have time to start setting up something and tweak it. As everything moves together, everything needs to clamp and be ready to go. But also the elements, we cannot underestimate how violent they can be. And when you're out in nature, it's very different than when you're downtown Montreal and you can still walk around with your running shoes all winter long. But it's not possible to do the same test in a makerspace. So you really have to test it out there. What surprised you the first time when you landed at the farm?
Well, when we brought the first prototype of the water level sensor to the farm, I think what surprised me was obviously mechanics of 3D printing that just aren't suitable for these sort of environments a lot of times. And that's something that we had to think about with this new prototype is coding and adding additional sort of bevels and ridges to the design to make it more sturdy. And then in the lab, what we tried to do was recreate the environment a little bit, where we had a bin, and then we would attach it on and sort of shake it and see how much it was moving around. And we did a couple of 3D prints and sort of kept reiterating on our design. But I think, so, you know, something else that we tried to consider, which we're still looking to see, is how a product or how a device can withstand the test of time. You know, obviously having something installed for a day is very different than having it installed for 6 months or a year or 2 years. And we don't want to make something that only lasts, you know, a month. And so we had to think about things like sun exposure, which does impact 3D printed parts. And so what we actually tried to do is pivot in a way where we branched out into 2 different designs and sort of compared them side by side. So Louise, who's a part of our team, designed a whole new prototype using a PVC pipe, so something that a lot of farmers already have. And that design is likely going to withstand, you know, the nature's aggression a lot better. So, and I think I just want to go back to the conversation about users. I think something that was really interesting for us this semester was that the people who joined our cohort at the start of the year were in a way acting as our users, in that we were introducing to them what we had worked on. And I remember we showed them our Instructables, and they're like, this doesn't make sense. Like, I could not follow this. Like, even if I sort of knew how to code. And we were like, oh, like, this is an issue. We need to go back, and we need to look at the Instructables that are out there and see how they've sort of laid out instructions for how to create things. So, yeah.
Awesome. So when you're in early brainstorming, what signals tell you to stop generating and start filtering? What makes an idea strategic versus just interesting? So I have Kash, Himanshu, and Tommy who want to talk about this.
Okay, I'll start. So the first part of the question, I think it's when is the right time to stop, when is the right time to start filtering ideas? So for us, we started with brainstorming, and we brainstormed till the time where there was enough number of ideas, but we put a hold when there were enough repetitions, and we were deviating too much from the main goal of the application, which is focusing on children and parents. So that's the first part where we stopped, and coming to the second part of the question, where the difference between the strategic and the interesting ideas. So I believe any idea that was aligned to our goal or main aim of the application was considered strategic for us. For example, in our case, if any idea is aiming to emotionally support a child, that was considered strategic, as well as to make communication effective and help adults to efficiently communicate with their kids. That was also considered strategic. Whereas if anything deviating from this part was interesting, for example, anything related to technology like AI, cybersecurity, were considered lower priority. So for us, this was the use case. And
so maybe I'm just going to follow up on this, what you just said. So in your case, you're designing a bot to be attached to the API of, in this case, Instagram, right? Or you already have it in Messenger, and it works in Discord. Using AI for emotional support is interesting, but what makes it strategic in your case?
For us, AI was initially an interesting topic because it's trending, and also it's creative. The thing is that we got to analyze that children really like interacting with bots, and initially they were feeding different kind of inputs, which were interesting for us, which was new for us. So again, since AI helped us where children could interact with the chatbot. I think we bridged the gap here, and it came into the strategic. But there are a lot of AI implementations which can be done within our applications. Later on, we had to filter out which functionality or feature to use and which not to use. But always, anything we did with the application, for example, the expert advice or the child psychiatrists we had in communication with us. So that was more strategic and was more aligned to the goal of the application. So that's what was the difference.
And you also know that those chatbots tend to be very dangerous. So you hear the news and you hear everything that's happening. So that's very that's informing as well. So maybe just one last intervention from Tommy. Did you want to build up on that?
Yeah. So listening to what he said, it seemed like a very much formal process. For our project, I feel like it was more of an informal process. We talked to the user of our product, and with the bunch of ideas that he had, it really came to 3 criterias. It was, did it call out to us? Was it interesting? And was it feasible? We didn't really take weeks and months to do market research, feasibility testing. We just went for it because the innovation lab provided a safe space for us to fail. It kind of seems wrong to say, but because we didn't have that pressure to really have this like unicorn billion-dollar startup, we were able to just go for it. And it was such a nice environment to just test things out, work on stuff. And if you fail, you fail. But after all those failures, you then get to thrive when it finally works. So the informal process that we did was something that you can't really find anywhere else except for here in the Innovation Lab.
Or on a farm, because farmers, that's all they do all day long. They solve problems. They're probably your expert problem solvers should all be farmers, because that's what day in, day out, that's what they do. So, well, thank you for that. I think, Cash, did you want to add something to this?
Yeah, I can add something very short. Like when we were designing the publisher platform, we had this idea that maybe, because as I said, like publishers can upload their comic books through the platform. We had this idea that maybe it would be very, very interesting if they could add sound features to like different pages in their comics. Very simple idea. But when you start going into the details of it, like this was like early last semester, I think, when we were working on it, like a whole can of worms just opens up. Like, can you add like sounds to different pages? Can one page have more than one sound? And then you go to the back end, and how much storage is it going to take? So I think it's important to be creative and to have solutions, but it's also, you have to think about what is feasible. So for that reason, we had to say like, okay, we can have our beta version and release it, and then at the same time we can work on the sound feature. So it's important. Like it goes back to the first question of when you can release a minimal viable product. So that was my.
Yeah, that's interesting because you worked a lot on the 3D environment as well, which ended up feeling very static. And I think Dorsa and Alicia worked a lot on making it more flexible. It'll be interesting to test this at the end. They have the headsets so you can feel this. But there is a certain amount of poetry in our technology now. When I look at my phone compared to an Android phone and my browser, for example, when I get to the end of my page, it actually springs a little bit. It feels less hard, less static, a little bit more organic. So there's a lot there to invest that people don't think about, like how much effort is put into making it feel a little bit more soft and a little bit less resistant in terms of the technology. So thank you for this.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Second round table. Are there any questions from the audience? Any comments? Arthur. Meanwhile, I will call in the third round table. So that's Dorsa, Alicia, Louise, Mohamed, and Julien.
Yeah, I thought the conversation was super interesting, presentation as well. About the first conversations you had, Amir, etc., I think some interesting things were said. Overall, I would say what is pretty interesting with the innovation lab and like important is that especially now with AI, the entry barrier for like technical output and like achievements, etc., is becoming like lower and lower. Meaning like more and more people could develop like technical solutions, etc., fast with little resources. And I got a bit closer with the students and the developers in the team because I started developing myself to accelerate the speed of the process and the project, etc. Something I couldn't do even 6 months ago. So I think it enhanced even more the fact that just creating like technical solutions is not as valuable as it may seem. And what's really important is this kind of iterative loop, feedback loop, etc., that you start creating with the user. It's kind of, I would say, the difference between the innovation lab is like and like a hackathon, for example. Not saying hackathons are not important, but there is, hackathon is just like developing a solution, and then you just at the end, and the output is just technical output, But the innovation lab is really the whole process and getting the users and so the difficult part is not anymore in the technical ability and the technical like creativity. Is really in talking with the users, delivering, and this is the last barrier between this is what AI can't take yet. Is what the users feel, and this is time that will take, that you will need always. I feel like in 10 years you will still need to ask to the human at the end, like, do you like it, and how can we make it better? And AI can kind of automate this, but there's still a human that needs to answer, to you. So I think that's very important in the lab, and maybe the only place where you can actually do this. So that's pretty cool.
So when you start dealing, thank you, Arthur. So when you start dealing with humans, it gets messy. That's basically the bottom line. And AI is like sort of like arguing with your mirror, but as soon as you start dealing with humans, and they start to tell you like, what is this for? And I guess you can relate to this when you talk about, maybe for those of you who are graduate students, when you talk about your thesis, like it becomes a big deal in your life. It overtakes your life, and then people tell you, okay, so what's your thesis about? And you kind of go, blah, 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 and then they kind of go like, what for? And you're like, whoa, okay, yeah, I have to figure out the what for. So that's what innovation does to you directly, right? So you absolutely have to do the work to figure out, what am I doing this for? Who am I serving? And who will actually really genuinely use this? So welcome to the third roundtable of this event. We're going to talk about learning from the innovation experience. And I mean, basically, the innovation experience is all about success and failure. And hopefully you went through an experience where it was okay to fail, and you don't abandon and go home because you fail, but you stick to the fight, you stick with the trouble, and you carry on. So one of the questions is, what condition or environment have made innovation easier for you? What's your best innovation setup? You want to go?
Personally, a big thing that's important when you're doing innovation is having a supportive team. A supportive team that not only backs you up, but also challenges you and asks questions. Doesn't just accept your ideas at face value, but interrogates and analyzes them critically.
I think, to me, innovation comes more naturally when I know I have the time to experiment rather than rush to meet a deadline. Because if I just want to meet the deadline, then I would go with a safer option that is less risky and less original. While when I know I have the time to risk and then test and iterate, I will come up with more original ideas that I'm more proud of, especially in creative works.
Okay, so basically my point of view in terms of urgency is a bit different. So in innovation, if you are working in a team, there are two things which matters a lot. The one is the cognitive diversity, where you have a people with different mindset, different perspectives. and bringing up different expertise to make a one product or innovate something, right? And another thing is the urgency. So working in an innovation lab, what I felt was that urgency was one of the things that we have a proper timeline. Within timeline, you need to develop something, you need to figure out something, and you need to build a conceptual framework, maybe like research. So I believe urgency is also one of the things which actually push you to the level of your competence, right? And it doesn't feel like that you are pressurizing yourself or it's kind of paralyzing you, but it gives you an edge that it's a compass you need to follow and you need to find your path. So I think urgency also is one of the key factor in innovation, which helps you to solve the problem quickly and with meaningful actions. That's my perspective.
That's kind of interesting because, I mean, you could keep on exploring and exploring and exploring forever. I know some people who say, they want to start a business. They've been saying that for 20 years. I also know some people who want to, try something new, a new process in their company, and have been saying that for many years. I mean, one of the things that I need to do in my own research teams is implement Zotero, and the only person that's actually doing it right now in my team is Naailah. But those are the kinds of things that you always say, I'll wait for tomorrow. But when you have a deadline and when you have a certain amount of hours to dedicate, and you know that by this time we need to get to this stage. So you set some milestones. The importance of milestones is extremely important. Did you bring that into your life, or did you already have that in your life, or did you get some of the habits from the Innovation Lab implemented in your own processes?
For me, in my life, I usually use milestone, but in a bigger scale where I need this and I won't subdivide it. But for Innovation Lab, I needed to divide the task in smaller attainable tasks, because the whole time everything changes. So you need to be able to change what task needs to be done and adapt to what the new problem needs to be resolved, and whatever comes up needs to be able to. You need to be able, to switch your whole workflow to adapt to it. And having only a big goal, kind of stops you from seeing, okay, well, this doesn't work, so this is the part I need to change.
Yeah, small milestones. Online, Matthew was telling us milestones, roadmaps, and deadlines, as well as wins, are so important. Is there a small win that you had at one point that you celebrated? You're like, yeah, we got this. The cave, maybe?
Sure, yeah. So I think every time when we work on a new environment, it's like a small win. Like we add the lights, we're like, oh, it looks much better. We test it and it works is good. There's an issue, we fix it, it feels like a win. So it helps us to gain our momentum and get back to it.
So one of the aspects of the reality, and that's something that Arthur implemented, was getting together also. It's not part of the conversation, but getting together to get to know each other. And I know that you guys have been bowling in the reality team. So tell me about getting together and trying to unify in terms of other events than just through the innovation process. Is that important? Like, what does that do when you get to know each other?
I think it helps us in our collaboration because we're more comfortable than to share ideas. We become friends, and it's less stressful when we're working together because then we can share our ideas more freely, give feedback without feeling offended, because we're just trying to improve what we're working on at the end of the day. So it helps for sure.
So one of the things that happens when students go through the Innovation Lab is that they build lasting friendships as well. It's one of the criticisms that I had about university is that people sit in large classes and they don't know each other, and then they go home and they have other friends in other networks. Parsa, for example, was telling me that he went for dinner with the cohort from the last time, and then there's more and more people speaking to each other and coming back and working on other things or just developing some simple friendships. So through these interdisciplinary processes, there are lasting relationships that actually occur, and then you build your network, which is probably the most important thing you're getting from the university experience, is that you're getting knowledge, but you're also building a network, and that is so important. So, all right, so let's go to the second question, and maybe we can hand this one over to Louise. When you're stuck or uncertain mid-project, what keeps you moving forward, and how do you manage the discomfort?
Yeah, so we talked about like going for a walk, taking a break, kind of like what you were saying with the forest and the trees, like taking a step back. I can't tell you how many times, like in explaining a problem to my roommate, that I've like figured it out or found another path to like go down. So yeah, or talking to mentors as well, like getting expertise beyond your own. You know, that's part of the reason why like a multidisciplinary team is so helpful in the lab.
So, one of the things I liked that you said is taking a step back, but I don't know for you, but for me what usually happens is I go too deep into the problem, and then usually it's just something very simple that I just forgot to do at the beginning. And even if I trace my step back, I'm so stuck on what the problem is that it's not enough and I don't see it when I go back. Well, when I take a step back and just go do something else, to go for a walk or go talk with somebody else, it just comes, not naturally, but it's easier when you come back to like, oh, yeah, this is where it doesn't work.
To add on that, another thing that helps is like breaking things down into small steps. We talked about it before in the context of like being able to adapt when you break things down into smaller steps, but it also helps make the tasks in and of themselves more manageable. Because if my task is make a whole environment, like that doesn't feel feasible for one day. But if I tell myself make one model and then texture it, like those are smaller steps, more actionable, that I could do and not get overwhelmed and be like, okay, I don't know what I'm doing exactly or where I'm going exactly with this, but I know that if I do this one small thing, then I'm closer to the goal.
Okay, just to add on to that, because I'm working with the Sonaro and we have a very small team, like only Saidul and me. So he's a kind of technical guy, very proficient and professional in AI things, and I have a clinical background. So at one point during the project we were working, and I felt like that I felt overwhelmed because of the complexity of the technicality, because I do not understand the AI. So I started learning the AI, and the thing which helped me to get along with him and the team and understand the project was talking to them. You know, it's very important that if you are not expert in something, you find the right expert, right peer or mentor, and talk to them and try to break down the complex task into the smallest parts and do your reading, put your efforts, and of course take breaks. And it helps you to solve and ease your mind and step back and then start doing again. So I always use this kind of notion that restart. Always restart in innovation, and it helps you again. Of course, in try and error process, we always restart because when we fail, we restart again. So that's one of the key thing which I understood that helped me working in this kind of environment where I get stuck.
Yeah, so restart, but restart with the experience of your previous failure, right? Exactly.
Yes, exactly.
So this whole idea of networking is really important, as I just said before, but it's also really interesting because when you're stuck, and that came from Bart Simon, who's the director of the Milieu Institute. He was telling me when I was putting up this makerspace is if we don't have a solution to this problem, it's just because our network is not big enough. There's somebody somewhere that has a solution to this. So keep on networking, keep on building your leadership to try to reach out to people and expand your network. And if you're doing VR, for example, or if you're doing ultrasound technology, or if you're doing farming technology, or whatever it is that you're working on, everybody working on this topic should know that you exist somewhere, right? So if you're just silent and you're working in silo, it will never actually help you solve problems. So you're limited to your own intelligence. That's basically what it is, right? So when you're connected, it's like a computer that's connected to the internet, and now you're much more powerful in terms of what you can take through. So the last question for this group is, how do you think the innovation experience will affect how you work in the future?
I think moving forward, like I can use the experience that I learned here, especially as a designer doing the design thinking process, iterative process, and testing things, and just remembering that I won't get it right the first time, and that's okay, and I can keep working on it to improve my ideas is really important. Another thing is I worked in a multidisciplinary team in Modality, and I learned to adapt my communication style depending on who in the team I'm talking to, if it's the developers or if it's another artist in the team. That's very different, and I learned to adapt my communication style.
For me, like I said in the beginning, it was to first divide the steps, but also to jump into action faster. So stop thinking and trying to find if it's the right solution and just doing it and seeing if it works or not. By doing that, you save a lot of time. Well, for me, I saved a lot of time by just finding out that no, it didn't work, or yes, it worked, but this is maybe something to change. So just trying out things and figuring out a bit along the way.
So I have another perspective for myself because I'm a PhD candidate, right? And I remember when you started the conversation, you were mentioning that the graduate student presenting their thesis, blah, 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 and ended up nothing, that what are you delivering? What are you doing it? So that's what I found actually in this experience, because as a graduate student, I always ask the precise question. I always talk about data. I always talk about rigor. But what is going to deliver? What's the application for that? You know, the innovation actually changed that perspective for me, where I need to ask more broader questions, that what is going to cause the impact on the society, right? And we need to think about that, what is the population impact of that product we are developing or the innovation we are working on. So if I take away something from this innovation experience for myself, for my further career, and that's the one thing, that start looking at the things with two different lenses, you know. And I will carry these two modes with me. One is the graduate and PhD clinical scientist perspective, researcher, and then the innovator as well. So it will help me to define some problems with more clarity, which have a more population impact. And that's something which I found very interesting in this experience.
Fantastic. Does anybody want to add something?
I definitely learned that communication is so important when the moment your team becomes like bigger than 1, 2, 3 people. Like, we were a pretty small team, a team of 6, but I can't tell you how many communication problems we had because someone started working on something and we didn't know that other people have updated. And so like you kind of discover that you can't work in a black box. You can't just open the project and start doing something. You have to check in, like update yourself, read the group chat, check what people have updated, like if anything has changed, if you need to pull from GitHub or whatever. It's so important to be connected with your team. And that goes back to what we were saying earlier about being friends and being comfortable with each other too, because we need to be talking a lot to make the project happen. Otherwise, silly things like bugs and conflicts are going to stop the process.
That's an awesome conclusion. Did you have anything else to add, Louise? All right. So thank you for this round table. We have a few minutes of transition. During the transition, I will call on Johanne, Arthur, Danielle, who's online, Remy, Abe, Charlie, Tariq, who's online, and Mike, who's online. So we have a few minutes to comment, ask questions. Anybody else? Nadia, you've been mentoring.
So I'm very happy that I decided to come and not to be online. And so I'm very impressed by the project. I'm very impressed by the discussion. I'm like, oh my God, I need to take the recording and then just share it afterwards. I'm thinking about, how many times I'm gonna share it and where I'm gonna share everything that you've discussed, and even how I can recycle it in my own courses. So seriously, guys, you did an amazing job.
So because of all that happened in Innovation Lab, during my sabbatical, I'll be preparing a self-training guide to becoming an innovator. So I'll be reaching out to all the mentors and the partners and the students from the past. So I have 272 emails to write tonight, maybe tomorrow, who knows. So thank you guys for joining us in person and online. So we have, this is the first time I do it this way with the roundtables, just to get people to talk a little bit about their experience rather than present long presentations that everybody ends up yawning. So the whole idea behind the Innovation Lab is that I can't do this by myself. I don't know enough about everything. We're talking about 80 disciplines, over 50 challenges in all forms of innovation, tech innovation, health innovation, pedagogy, business processes, new markets, and so on and so forth. So here I have a bunch of innovators, innovation mentors that help me guide this process, but at the same time shape the process and shape what students are doing. So the first thing I think I'm going to do is allow everybody to present themselves, just so that we see the varied backgrounds. Maybe I can start with online. Mike McGilvery is online. So maybe we can ask him to, just a quick introduction.
Hi, Ann, can you hear me okay?
Yes. Yes.
Okay, great. So Mike McGilvery, I'm one of the mentors for the AgriPulse team and great job team. I just want to commend Dr. Davidson for being innovative with respect to the Innovation Lab, changing formats, like moving to this round table. It's great. Because although we have the outcomes of the different projects, the deliverables, I think one of the major deliverables is the ability for the teams to develop new skill sets, to understand innovation. And the key about innovation is it's something that constantly happens. You don't just make something and then that's it, that's the end of it. And, the reiterations with respect to the prototypes and the product that they came out with as far as the water level sensor goes, it shows that. And I also want to commend the team for and Dr. Davidson for switching to the fail fast method. It's one that we embrace, the one that we use is try things, try them right away, get them going, do something. Don't sit there and take, days, weeks, months to study something to death, because by that time it may not even be relevant anymore. So great job. I just want to commend everyone and for us, it's a great experience working with, first of all, with folks that may not have an agricultural background. Second of all, with just bright young team members that just bring a lot of energy and help us and challenge us as well to think outside the box. So great job.
All right, thank you, Mike. So Mike McGilvery is the founder of Kirkview Farms in Ontario, with who I work very closely. Maybe we go with Arthur.
Yes. So basically, what is my?
Just present yourself.
Okay. So I'm Arthur. I'm the mentor of the Readality project and also the CEO and founder of the company Readality. And I've been working with the lab since as a student before. Is Abe in the call?
He was arriving at noon, so maybe he's in traffic.
Okay. But yeah, so I stayed in contact with Abe. He reached out even 2 weeks ago. And we started working together, I think, end of 2023. So it's been a while now. On different projects, which in some way led me to start Readality. It's an idea I had a long time ago. Ann-Louise accepted to give me a chance and recruit some students and start the project this way, etc. So amazing opportunity, and now it opens me so many doors. So that's insane. So I'm forever grateful. And overall, it also led me to now, even not being a student anymore, still work with a lab, work with students, new ones. I think they've done an amazing job. Honestly, maybe one of the best semester I've had this since I arrived in the lab. Super motivated students, everyone. So amazing job. And And yeah, I think this is great because even with Tariq here, I don't know if the group mentioned it, but he did help us this semester as well. And it's been a year now that he's helping us. And so we do create strong bonds, is it the way we say it, with mentors. I did as a student. I think I now as a mentor also create great bonds. And I think this is great. I think this is pretty unique, to be honest. So very happy to be part of the lab. I hope it keeps going.
Thank you. So maybe we could just do the round of presentation really quickly, and I can head to the questions because you started answering a question, but that's okay, no problem. So Charlie.
Hello. Yeah, my name is Charlie. I worked on 2 projects with Ann-Louise through my design studio. So we worked with some students maybe a year or 2 ago, and really loved it. So we renewed our time with them. Today, I'm also the program manager at District 3 here at Concordia, where we continue to work with Ann-Louise, but also with many students on a variety of innovation entrepreneurship related projects.
Hi, everyone. Reintroducing myself, Johanne Pelletier. I work here at Concordia, Director of Public Engagement Communications. So that means trying to get our faculty and researchers in front of a variety of publics to share the great good work that we do. And as part of that, I discovered storytelling myself about 10, 15 years ago. I started performing. I didn't expect to become a performing artist, but I did. And I take what I learned in storytelling to teach pitching in a variety of contexts, including the pleasure of D3 and the Innovation Lab.
Hi, my name is Remy. I manage the Lab for Innovation, Teaching, and Learning. And along with my colleague from the Center for Teaching and Learning, John Bentley, we mentored 4 cohorts along with the Innovation Lab, mostly working on learning spaces and innovation design for teaching spaces.
Thank you, Remy. So I'll hand it over to Tariq, who's online.
Hi. As you mentioned, I'm Tariq. I'm professor at Université du Québec at Trois-Rivières, and I'm specialized in computer graphics and more precisely in immersive technologies, so everything related to VR, AR, and so on. And I've been mentoring Reality team since the winter session of last year. And yeah, that's about it.
And we thank you for doing that, Tariq. I know it's complicated as a faculty member, but it's so important, the work that you're doing with the students. So Daniel Jasmin is in France. Maybe I'll allow him to introduce himself.
Yes, hello everybody. So I'm Daniel Jasmin. I've been mentoring Julien, Himanshu, and Naailah on the project Monster Moods on Monster Messenger. I've been working during 25 years on innovation. I've launched 10 startups, sells 4 of them, and I'm really happy to learn with students how they can make innovation happen.
I always like to present Daniel as a serial entrepreneur. So every time he has an idea, he never hesitates to launch it. So if ever you want to be bold in entrepreneurship, just reach out to him. He'll tell you that you should not wait 1 more minute and just go for it. So we're here to talk about mentoring innovation. I can't believe how lucky I am to work with people with such complementary expertise, but also such wide expertise. You allow the lab to go further step by step. One of the things that we tend to do in education is we like to control what students learn. And the first question I want to ask you is, what's the difference between coaching an innovation process and controlling it? How do you stay in the coaching role? Maybe what are the challenges or what are the questions you ask yourself? You want to go?
Yeah, sure. Remy, okay. So I think about this a lot because it can be hard, depending on the project, sometimes to stay in the backseat, especially if you're emotionally attached to the idea that's being explored. And I think that's something that's worth acknowledging. Certain projects not as interesting to me personally, and those are the ones that are easier to kind of let things happen the way they do. But one of the things that I try to keep in mind is, how did I make a mistake when I was, their age, with their level of experience in that context, and constantly try to remember the feelings I had back then and how it was through the mistakes I was able to get to the interesting solutions. Because sometimes knowing something makes you go for more obvious answers. So I think whenever I'm seeing either students I'm working with or mentees we're working with at District 3 do things that don't seem to me like the right call, it's like, okay, well, hang back. Why are they making these mistakes? How would I have made a similar mistake back then? And just think about that, and you have to sort of trust that they're gonna find their way and that there's no real failure at the end of the day, right? If we're talking about actual innovation, the notion that there's an abject failure can't exist, because otherwise we're putting the whole project at risk.
I agree with what Charlie said. Also, to me, it's fundamental. Like the idea that these aren't RAs. We're not hiring people to help us on a project. We're making sure that their project gets a path forward. And so that's a fundamental part of the way we approach it and the way we shape the conversation, and we try and make sure that everything that they're doing is from a co-creative position and not necessarily from a top-down, telling them how to do it. It's really discovering what they want to do and finding the path that we can to help them get to their vision.
Does anybody want to interject online? Daniel has his hand up.
Sorry. Yes, I just wanted to, in fact, when we address a societal problem we want to address, we don't have the solution as a coach. We don't know exactly the clue. And there are hundreds of ways to solve the problem. What is important is a student that they bring something fresh. They are free from the bias that what is allowed, feasible. Our role, in my opinion, is just to help them to filter the path. The path was the highest potential on saving time, that they are not going to repeat the same mistake we have already made. Most of the time I say, in innovation, we become less and less bad. At the beginning we are bad, and after we understand we made mistake and become better. And so today we are not experts, we are just people who have made a lot of mistakes, and we are going to save time not to make the same mistake again.
Thank you, Daniel. Does anybody want to interject online? Tariq or
yeah.
Mike? Tariq, yes.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. I think as mentors, we mustn't control the team, and that's very important. And how I do it myself is that I think I can bring something to the team. I can maybe share my experience, or sometimes it's always important to say, and I said it multiple times, based on what I hear, I would do this, or I would do that, or you can do this and you can do that. But I always tell the team that they know the code better than me. I don't see the code. So and they know their muscle, how much time they can put in the project. So they need to make their decisions, and they can go and do the opposite of what I say, and it's totally fine. And I like that when they do that. That means that they analyzed, I'm sure they took into account what I said, but then they need to move forward. It's their project and not mine. I'm here with some experience, and I can have maybe an helicopter view of the project, seeing the whole forest and not only the tree. So to guide a little bit, but not impose ideas. That's I think this is really important in this context.
Yes, thank you. Maybe we can go to the question number 3, which is what's a question you ask that always shifts someone's thinking in the innovation process? And I think maybe Joanne, you can answer this, or Mike. It might be interesting to see how you.
Maybe I'll just pick up on the last question along with this, that I think a position of humility is important for a coach, that is to listen more, to be reflective back, to act as a mirror to teams and to colleagues. It certainly matters a lot in pitching and storytelling, to mirror back, to be a safe space audience. And I think I probably it's less about asking questions, but offering, for me, for my work, offering back what I hear is usually the game changer. and a constant reminder that the goal is not to sound like me, but to find their own voice and to sound like themselves, which is the voice emerging.
There's something very interesting that you do with students, and every student you have touched in my classes and the innovation lab, when they pitch, and at one point you just mirror back what you heard, their eyes go like, I remember Parsa was like, oh my God, like what just happened here? So in this, a lot of people in innovation mentoring use a lot of Socratic questioning. So why is that? And it comes back to a little bit what Sunisha was saying in terms of the 5 whys. Like why is that? Why is that? Why is that? Which is one way to do it, but the way that you do it, which is mirror back and hear what I'm saying, does it make sense? Or do you want to tweak it? You don't have to use it this way, but this is just given an option. How did you develop this?
Painfully, with a lot of work, listening to thousands of pitches and researchers, but also spending most of my life in universities, surrounded by a lot of lengthy complexity. And my argument is not anti-intellectual. I think it's exceedingly important to sit in a place where we're conveying complexity, but to also have the muscle to be able to convey it differently. And that is not something we favor in universities. We train the more extensive muscle, but when we emerge, particularly in innovation spaces, we do need to be able to speak, right, to regular people. And so what I'm mirroring back is, when I mirror back to people doing pitches or telling stories, I'm activating like a disassembly. I'm saying, take apart all the stuff you said. If literally we're in an elevator, how would you explain this human to human? And so I think it's a very human muscle, and I've learned it over time. Partly it's began in part at D3, where having listened to thousands of pitches, but I think it's an effective tool. And what I often suggest is if you have an idea, share it with another human and ask them what they heard. It's the single best method.
So I like to say that every student that's been touched by Joanne understands the metaphor of spinach. Yeah. So she'll come to the class and she'll say, you all have a lot of spinach, but we can't chew it all, so you'll have to cook it and give us a smaller portion. So that's Joanne's signature metaphor. Thank you for that, because every student that's been touched by you refers to spinach.
Can I add that I often use the example of I was walking down the street a couple of months ago, and sometimes I teach in big seminars, hundreds of people, so I don't know who's there necessarily. And a young woman walks by me and she says, oh, Madame Pelletier, je travaille encore sur mes épinards pour les réduire. Je travaille encore sur les épinards. I knew exactly what she meant, so she got the message.
Fantastic. So there is a perspective also of being a professional or a business leader or a business owner. You're working with students. And for some people, they will say, oh, I don't have time to do this. But for all of you, it makes sense. And you're doing it because there's a reason for it. So from your perspective as a professional, what value does working with students in an early stage in innovation brings to you or your team or your business? And maybe we can start with, I don't know, Mike, if you're not driving a tractor or not doing something that's dangerous, maybe you can interject.
Yeah, so no, we really enjoy it because some of the aspects, the challenge is to actually challenge us as well, and it challenges us to move back into that teaching, more of that coaching, teaching role or guiding role. We have this as business people, and usually, talking mostly management aspects, creative aspects. So we want to direct, and the idea is that you have to not do that. You have to be able to basically guide, but not direct. So that and in creating that in us, it actually helps us in our business, because then it makes it better with our employees, our interns, and anybody else that we're dealing with that may be new to our business. So it's been very, very valuable in that aspect.
Okay. Yes. Well, it's pretty nice because we have similar age, etc. Like we I would say, get along in many ways. So it's pretty comfortable to work with a team like this. We think the same way, but also in many different ways. Like it's basically 7 different ideas, always, which is cool. Yeah, for me, it's very, very comfortable to work with a team of students. I used to be a student 6 months ago, so that makes sense as well. And I would say, well, not answer for Tariq, but there's this, I mean, the fact that it's like interdisciplinary, and that basically everyone brings something else to the table. It's just very functional. Everyone also know that there is it kind of rebounds on the first question, but the main question I would ask to the student is the why. I think the why is the most important, because in innovation, since there is no guaranteed result and output in what you produce, but also in what it can bring to you, nothing is guaranteed. So you really need to have a strong why, because nothing is given to you at the end. And I think from the day one, which is the case for this semester, students were all like very motivated, and it was clear for them what they would get out of the project, etc. Then the motivation stays the whole semester, and yeah, that's why I think it was one of the most productive semester. But the first question I think should be the why. Like why are you doing this? And if you have a strong answer to this, then it works well.
So for me, this is going to sound strange because it's going to sound self-centered, but explaining the idea to the students is actually in and of itself usually a big part of it. Like explaining the brief for the mandators is really a challenge, right? Because you think you have everything figured out, and then you are trying to explain something to try and get the project going. And that in itself, the students' questions about that, hey, what do you mean by this? And you start to realize that maybe I don't understand the thing I'm trying to do as much as I thought I did. And I find that simply on that level, there's a lot of value. So if anyone's listening to this and thinking, should I do this? Honestly, there's a lot of value simply in figuring out what you want to work on with people you've never met before. And then for the students themselves, I think there's an interesting, so there's a company called GitHub. If you're in the development world, you've heard of it. The first 3 months, they protect their employees when they join, because they consider their fresh eyes to be the main asset that they have. And I find that that's such a unique value and such a unique thing to think about, which is we often think about, oh my God, I have to sit here and train these people. Many businesses count that as a cost, which is when you onboard someone, the cost of training. But there's a return on the lack of knowledge, which is they're going to ask questions that are going to make you question your own base assumptions. And that is extremely valuable. That's something that we should absolutely encourage. It's like, because you don't know things, break it. Because you don't know things, push, interject, make us look like we don't know what we're saying, and force us to answer those questions for you. So that, for me, is a really big part of it.
I think that's a fantastic example, and also from a selfish perspective, it's just really a lot of fun. It's really rewarding to work with students, and it's a genuine pleasure. And I can speak for my colleague John, and we both miss it. We haven't done it for the last 2 semesters, and it's a real fun time to work with the students. The way we structured it was kind of like a graduate seminar, so we'd have guest speakers every time. We'd have to find speakers based on the interest and tailored to the students' explorations. But it's really it was a very pleasurable experience, a lot of fun, and we got a lot out of it as mentors, and we hope the students got a lot of it. They told us they did, but it was a really valuable experience as a mutual way of learning and growing in that sense.
Do you want to hand it over to Danielle? Yeah. And then to Joanne?
Sure. Danielle? Go ahead.
Yes. Thank you. In the project we run on cyber violences for kids, for me it's really important that this project is handled by young people. I'm far from the target. On now it's interesting. 1/3 of the young people from 16 to 25 years old think about suicide. On for me, it was really important that this project get those young people try to solve by themselves this problem. The second thing is when you work with them, I think Arthur and everybody talked about that, but because they have a challenge which is really big to solve on, they will try to find some paths that are around them on their connection. I know that Julien talked with his mother, or somebody talked with Robin, talked to a journalist, and everybody find a solution who bring this in the project, and it can change all the project direction. So it's really, for me, yes, something. This is a student, this is a young project, so it has to be handled by young people.
Thank you, Daniel. Did you want to interject, Joanne?
I want to say, perhaps, I think a statement of the obvious for me that sometimes when we're coaching or teaching, the recipients, the students assume it's a one-way street. I am learning so much from every interaction with you. I have my own, I have founded something that has consistently frustrated me, that I often can't make move fast enough. That I'm using the same principles that you are using to develop your projects and innovations. And so there is a learning, certainly on my side, absolutely, every single day, and it's much appreciated.
Yeah, so I think it's this posture of humility as well, right? It's like there are things that you don't know that you will learn through this interaction. Abe just joined us. So this is the mentor that Arthur referred to. Sometimes I have projects that are so odd and so out there that I have to find a mentor who's willing to support a student to do the impossible. So what's better than to just get into your network of past students to say, hey, I know you're daring. I know you're bold. I know you can do things. And I know that there are things that maybe you could have offered, somebody could have offered for you when you were there, but now you can offer them back. So I matched Abe with Arthur at the time, and that's what yielded reality. Maybe I can hand it over to you just to talk about what's one thing mentees often underestimate when starting an innovation project, and how do you help them see it?
No, first of all, I just want to say that it's like, yeah, I worked with Arthur for a couple of years, but it was purely actually Arthur's attitude towards doing the project is what made it eventually a reality. So, I mean, I was just part of it in the beginning. But I think the most thing that I see is a bit maybe underrated by some of the mentees is the operational boredom after some point. Because you have to do things every day that might not be exciting, but you have to do them to keep things afloat. The financials, papers, hiring people, firing people, following up on people, check-in meetings. These are not like fancy things, but they take so much time. And I think that's one thing that is pretty underrated when it comes to mentees.
Thank you. So one thing, maybe Charlie, actually go.
Quickly, I'll try to be quick. It's not my best strength, but I'll try. Yeah, I mean, there are two things. I would say what was great with Abe, and I think it probably happened with other mentors, is freedom that he let me as a student. We started on another project, which is actually, we can say, kind of failed. I mean, not like a bad failure, kind of very instructive failure, which at some point, well, reality started when we were still working together, and it was a shift from one project to another, and it's also because he let me shift from this previous project to this new one that now I'm here, and we made so much progress. So I think the freedom that mentors can let to the students can bring a lot of potential, etc. And I forgot the second point, so.
Yeah, I want to quickly jump on what Abe said about the boredom and stuff. When I started my own studio and I thought, I'm an entrepreneur now, I'm going to become Mark Zuckerberg, it's $1 billion, so much excitement. None of that happens. It's like the accountant comes and they're like, hey, you have to file your reports. And I'm like, wait, what? This is what innovation is? But in reality, one of the things that I find is that, it's kind of, I hinted at this earlier, it's how little the experts actually know in some cases. So often
also to your point, Joanne, like they are there to learn, or that's what they think, and it's like they're assuming that everything in the brief is right, or they're assuming that the scope that was handed to them is complete. And it's like, that's almost never the case. Actually, there's almost never a good time. There's almost never a bad time to ask a very basic question. And it's always shocking, I think, for the mentees as well to see like, whoa, I thought that this person had their stuff figured out. And I'm asking like, how do you, who uses this? And they're stumbling. So I think that's one really important one. And then the other is the value of the process over the outcome. Most people underestimate, they think that the client is there to get a cool thing at the end. And that's true at the beginning, but the minute you start any innovation project, immediately it becomes apparent that this person is there for a process. They're there to feel accompanied, held, supported. They're there to feel like you're adding value to the project as a whole. And the thing at the end, yes, it counts for a lot, but if the process is unpleasant, it's not going to count for much. They're not going to want to work with you again. They're not going to want to, maybe the project itself will feel like it's not worth it anymore because the process was so poorly managed. So I think those are the two things for me, is how little the experts know and the value of the process over the output.
We're running out of time, so maybe we can rapidly. Is there anybody online, Mike, Tariq, or Daniel, who wants to do a last intervention? Tariq?
Yeah, a little one. Yeah, as far as what the mentoring the team brings to me personally, it's kind of like seeing flowers blooming, which is really really fine. And at the same time, there's this aspect of innovation requires creativity. And the more we work on a field and we specialize and we acquire knowledge, the more we tend to develop rigidities, our ways of working, etc. And there's the danger of becoming less creative. And working with students always remind us that we always need to question the things, and things mustn't always happen the same way we used to do them. And it's really important, I think. That's it. Thank you.
Thank you, mentors. So I'm going to just ask the crowd if there's any questions coming through around the mentoring process. There's one question online. Emmanuel Lemonaco is asking a question for the ultrasound group. How did you determine whether the accuracy of the 3D image in relation to the actual anatomical features, for example, the actual size and shape of the plaque in the carotid artery?
Thank you. So for our case, we use AI and image processing to do that. So it's really challenging and complicated one that we feel when it's getting working on it, because it takes, like, to be honest, a few weeks to understand the whole project first. Because one of the thing and aspect was coming through my mind was how we gonna make believe to the practitioners that AI is gonna make it do it, and how it works, especially from the perspective of explainable AI. So like, we tried to use combination of image processing and AI, if I summarize that fact. So on top of that, one of the challenges was to like, how can you explain it in a simple terms that non-technical person will understand that? Because if I talk about different methods, models, and so on, it doesn't make sense to many other people, like my teammates, Mahamood. So I always try to explain them from real life perspective. Okay, this is how we track the plaque, and these are things happen. It really helps a lot to whenever it comes in terms of, like, general terms and examples. This is how we do actually try to track that plaque on the arteries.
Thank you. There's a question from Anne-Sophie.
I'll just bring this mic around over.
But I was wondering, since you've been mentoring students, do you feel like there's something that they underestimate when they come to you in their own abilities? Question mark.
Yeah, definitely to try and find joy in the process. There's an element of fun to it that doesn't always become evident because you're grinding through it or you're stressing out about your presentation or you're worried about X, Y, and Z. But that there's an element of joy to all of that, and that the process it can be fun if you take a flip perspective on it and just actually take a moment to appreciate it. So we try and remind that to all the students that we do work with, that you're in this, have fun with it. It's going to just make it a lot more, and it sounds trite to say it, like it doesn't sound that, it's very important to us in our process, and we find that it works well.
Joy and play in higher education is such a rare concept, and we should do that more and more.
I think one thing, the innovation process has a lot of intuition and gut that's required, and I think that's a bit underestimated. So it's not all about knowledge, and I think humans are generally born with a pretty decent intuition. If something feels wrong, if something feels like, I want to ask a question, but I feel shy, I feel stupid. All students do this in classes. Like, this is the biggest problem, I think, in the learning environment we've set up, is students don't want to ask questions. And when something feels wrong, most humans will know, even when they're quite young, that this is not right. I feel like there's something hazy there. The room feels it, but nobody's going to ask. So I think this is the biggest thing for me in a lot of my classes, but also in the projects, where it's like, ask. Just trust your gut. If something's telling you that it's off, ask. Worst case scenario, there's nothing wrong, and you'll learn to tune your intuition, but often it's right when there's something that feels wrong. So I think students need to really believe in themselves when it comes to that in every context in higher education.
Thank you, Charlie. That was very insightful. So this is all the time we had for today. We can continue chit-chatting for a few minutes. There's definitely, in closing, I just want to say, if today sparks your interest and you're online or you're in the room and you want to connect with us, please don't hesitate. Student, mentor, partner, fellow, or idea for a future challenge, just reach out to us. We don't discriminate ideas. We just try to figure out how we can bring them further, and we can see if we have the bandwidth to do them. So come be part of it, whether for a whole event, a whole challenge, or if you just want to mentor students, we'll put you on your list of mentors. Most importantly, I think, stay curious, stay connected, and most importantly, keep asking, what if we did it this way? What if we tried that? So we hope to see you in the next round of innovation. Enjoy the coffee and snacks. They're from the Hive. I'd like to support our student co-op, so that's for you. So hand it over to Doug and the For Space team.
Thank you, Ann-Louise. Also, just thank you everyone joining us online for your comments and reactions there. Just going to let you know, we're going to close up the Zoom and live stream now. This remains available on our YouTube channel. You can revisit it. You can share it. You should also have a wonderful weekend. Thanks, everyone.